right, we are live. Just set up on Instagram here. A few seconds to tune in. All right, we're live on Instagram as well. It's gonna be a little wonky angle here on Instagram. Sorry, I got a tripod going. Tripod. Zena, what's up? How you doing? All right, we're gonna get rocking here. All right, everybody, it is another live broadcast of the Sovereign Mind, Body, and Soul podcast with Coach Jerry. I am your host, Coach Jerry. I want to thank you all for tuning in now or later to this live broadcast. So before I get started, today's topic is going to be autoimmunity, and I'm going to tread very carefully on this because, as you know, there's a fine line between medicine and health, and sometimes we have to walk that line as health professionals, but oftentimes we can run the danger of crossing that line. So I'm gonna be very mindful of that today, okay? And if I do accidentally use medical jargon or give medical advice, it's not on purpose. It's all based on my opinion and observation. So anything I share today is an opinion based on research and observation, not medical advice. So I wanna just get that out of the way right away. For those of you who've never tuned into the Sovereign Mind, Body, and Soul podcast, this is my heart and soul being shared with you. This is my approach to health. This is my approach to life. And it's coming from my backstory where I lived a long life of just misery, pain, illness, and going to doctor after doctor, medication after medication, treatment after treatment, saw no relief, just kept me on a downward spiral. And I developed a lot of autoimmune conditions myself, none of which could be healed through medicine. So once I found the holistic approach, the integrated approach, the mind, body, soul network connection approach, things just started turning around very rapidly. So in my career as a health coach, I am able to share this knowledge with people and see amazing turnarounds, amazing transformations. But one-to-one, you can only help so many people. So it is my mission to share this with as many people as possible, help break you free from the dependence of pharma and your doctor. It doesn't mean that we don't have doctors and we don't continue to consult our medical professional teams. That's not what it means at all. But it's about taking the locus of power and putting it back in your own hands, because that's where your health belongs. And at the end of the day, no one's going to care more about your health and your outcome than you. Okay. All right. So that being said, let's get rocking. So today's topic, like I said, was autoimmunity. Oh, before I forget, guys, I have a Substack. It's Sovereign Mind, Body, and Soul podcast. Please head on over to Substack. Give me a follow. This is going to be posted on that later today. Give me a subscribe. Give me a comment. Head on over to Spotify and follow my podcast. If you like it, leave a 5-star review, please. As we know in this day and age of censorship, the alphabet companies, YouTube, Google, Facebook, all these companies, they really have your fate in your hands. And people like myself have experienced mass suppression of our distribution based on sharing our opinions. And if you're anything like me, that's not cool. And if you don't support that type of action, that type of suppression, that type of censorship, I would greatly appreciate it if you would just vote with your fingers, scroll on over to a different platform, give me a follow, give me a subscribe. So all my content that goes up on here is going to go up on there as well. And someday, if for some reason I'm not allowed to post on these platforms any longer, we'll have a way to stay in touch. So that being said, have you had in your life unexplained weight gain, skin issues, energy issues, allergies that never seem to go away, asthma, IBS or IBS-like symptoms, acid reflux, GERD, rheumatoid arthritis, or just any other hard to explain symptoms that just aren't normal? Has that happened to you? And have you seen an increase in similar type unexplained issues? In other words, did you start off with asthma and then you get digestive issues and then you get pain in your joints and then your skin starts to break out? Have you experienced this? In order to combat these conditions as they arose, did you take medications for them? Did you take topical creams? Did you take over-the-counter or prescription drugs? So in other words, as my asthma kicks on, I get an inhaler. And then pretty soon I start having skin issues. And for those skin issues, I start taking a topical cream. Or maybe I take a prescription Accutane or something like that. And then after that, digestive issues start to develop. I start getting acid reflux. I start getting constipation and diarrhea, a combination of the two. And then so I throw medicine at that. And then that medicine might relieve some of those symptoms, but then I start developing pain in the joints, achiness in the body, always stiff, energy low. See, it's a progressive stair step. Have you experienced anything like that? If so, leave them in the comments here. And I know it's really early, you guys. I hope some of you catching this on the morning drive. I was supposed to get this podcast out this weekend, but life happened. I chose to do a live workout instead and got caught in the football game. So speaking of the football game, you guys watch that Chiefs game? I don't know what happened in that fourth quarter, but it seemed like it was like, are you kidding me? It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life as far as football goes. All right. So if you've experienced anything like that, what I just described, that stair step effect, the ever increasing symptoms, which what I just described is kind of what we define as the aging process in America, right? It's just getting old. But what if it wasn't? What if it wasn't just getting old? What if this was your body's response to the environment that it's in? And it's giving you a message that something needs to change, something needs to be cleaned up. And instead of listening to that message, we add more toxins into the body. And because it provides temporary symptoms relief, we think that we're doing the right thing. And then when something creeps up later, seemingly unrelated, we don't connect the dots. And then we do the same thing with that. We throw a drug at it. We throw a cream at it. We throw an injection at it. And then again, the symptoms get relieved for a little bit, and then something else pops up. Guys, these things are not coincidence. In my humble opinion, based on research, clinical experience, and observation on myself and others, these are all very much connected. So what is autoimmunity? Well, the simple explanation is autoimmunity is your body attacking itself. What causes that? Well, without boring you with a whole bunch of scientific details that I'd probably have to rifle through a whole bunch of notes to find anyway, think of it like this. Something gets introduced into the body. The body does not recognize it as being part of the body. So it incites an immune response and it attacks that. Now, the issue arises when our body is constantly, chronically in this alert mode. Think about that. Constantly and chronically in alert mode. Why? Because there are so many things being introduced to our body that are not human, that are foreign. Our body does not recognize it. So when something gets introduced, our body doesn't recognize it, creates an immune response. Okay, it creates antibodies against these. Well, when it's chronically in that condition, in that state, it begins to lose the ability to discern between what is us and what is an invader. And we have to assume that part of that is because we take so much crap in, so many toxins in, that our actual tissue becomes toxic. So it becomes to the point where it's not human as well, if that makes any sense. I mean, technically it's human, but you know what I mean? It's compromised tissue. So this is how these things all become related. This is how GERD, RA, asthma, IBS, skin issues, energy issues, weight gain, all that becomes related. See, the medical industry really benefits on separating these issues, on separating obesity from asthma, from IBS, from rheumatoid arthritis. They could say things like obesity leads to these things, but by separating each one of these, instead of calling this an autoimmune response or physiological overload, in which it doesn't matter what these are, your approach would be similar. But they can make an inhaler for asthma, and then they can make a immune suppressant for your rheumatoid arthritis, and they could make a proton pump inhibitor for your acid reflux. All of these have numerous cascading side effects. On what planet does it make sense to shut down your body's immune response? When your body is only overactive in its immune response in response to its environment. So do we change the immune response or do we change the environment? Now, if you're listening to this, my audience is pretty smart. You know the answer to that, and I know you do. So I mentioned physiological load. So if we can imagine the environments we live in, the world we live in, the air is poisoned, the water is poisoned, and I'm not trying to sound all doom and gloom, right? This is like for effect. But if we think about it, the air is polluted. We know that they're geoengineering the skies, even though it's not widespread. You can find the information. It's all over YouTube. It's on Wikipedia. You can Google it. Like even the censorship companies don't hide that. So they are geoengineering our air. They are adding fluoride, God knows why, to our water, plus all sorts of other things. I mean, your drinking water is, basically recycled sewage and whatnot. Food supply is completely tainted. The FDA pyramid is upside down. They recommend processed foods as the base of your diet. What else? We throw drugs at any ailment, any sign of discomfort, we throw drugs at it. Stop the discomfort. Stop the pain. That discomfort and that pain is your body's response to heal you. And if you just can't take it, right, then you go to the hospital. But our symptoms that we medicate on our own, they're not that bad. We're talking about headaches. We're talking about sore throats, runny noses, none of which are comfortable. But if that's your body's natural, organic, God-given response to the stimulus or to the infection, then it's best to let it play out whenever we can. Again, just my opinion based on research, clinical experience, and observation, not a medical diagnosis or recommendation. But as all these toxins get introduced into our body from our food supply, from our air supply, from our water supply, from the makeups, lotions, colognes, perfumes, deodorants, soaps, laundry detergents, dish detergents, all of these things that get into our body, we create a physiological overload. Now, if you were in this modern world and you're hydrating well and you're getting good sleep and you're getting plenty of exercise, you can combat a lot of this stuff. That doesn't make it good for you, but you can combat a lot of it. It's the old adage of 10 pounds of flour in a 5-pound sack. I've heard people argue against my philosophy with things like, well, you have a liver and kidneys and, I think I'm just going to trust my body to take care of it. Well, yeah, you can do that. You can do that. But if you give your body 25 days worth of filtration load in one afternoon, you're never going to catch up. And that's when the overload happens. That's when the overwhelm happens. And that's when the body starts to respond in a way that creates disease and symptoms in our body. So our body gets overloaded physiologically. And I've talked about this in the past. This ties into the central sensitization concept. But again, just to rehash, if we imagine like our body's ability to absorb physiological load, which is stress and insults to the body, as a bucket, in every one of those stressors, those physiological stressors, is like a drop in the bucket, right? So you've got like your deodorant, your toothpaste, the water you drink, the food you're eating, right? Every one of those is a drop. Well, eventually we've got to empty the bucket, right? Either do a detox, cleanse, hit the sauna, work out, drink a lot of water. The best solution for pollution is dilution. I got that from Paul Chek. I don't know where he got it. I don't remember. But that would represent emptying of the bucket, right? Or if the bucket had a drainage system, right? The bucket would just drain out naturally. But if the drops come in faster than we can empty it or faster than it can drain out, we create an overload in the system. And when that overload happens, that's when the body is doing silly things like creating antibody response to things that we consider normal and natural, right? But they're not normal and natural. These are just poisons that we've always taken. Topical creams, makeups, deodorants, perfumes, colognes, you name it, type of stuff. So our body gets overloaded, and then all of a sudden we get these symptoms, right? And then doctors try to explain away like, oh, it's a genetic condition, it's this, it's that. But either they don't know what it is or they know what it is and they're not communicating that to us. Neither one of those is acceptable. So, for example, let's give an example of a common way to treat like rheumatoid arthritis. So like RA, your doctor is going to run a scan on you. They're going to determine if you have rheumatoid arthritis or not. And when you come back positive, they're going to recommend immune suppressing drugs. They're going to recommend shutting down the immune system's response because it's just causing so much pain in the body. But like I mentioned earlier, the immune system is responding to foreign agents in the body that it doesn't recognize. That is why it happens. So instead of taking a look at what you're eating, take a look at what you're putting on your skin, take a look at what you're drinking, take a look at how much sweat you're perspiring through a week, how much water you're drinking. They're not looking at that. They're treating it like it's, oh, oopsie, it's a coincidence of nature and we don't know what else to do besides this. I'll tell you a story, a rheumatoid arthritis story. So I had a prospect come in, and she came and told me what she was going through. She had RA, recently diagnosed with RA. And so I told her, go next time you go see your rheumatologist, ask her 3 questions. And the 3 questions were, after she tells you what drug she wants to give you, ask her, is there anything else that I can do for this? And then when she gives you another drug, say, is there anything else that I can do for this? And then when she gives you the 3rd drug recommendation, ask her if there's something you can do for this that is natural. So she did that. And the game played out just like we said. And she got to the natural question part. And the doctor said, well, I guess diet has something to do with it. Something to do with it. Guys, I've had people come in with colitis, full-blown ulcerative colitis. Doctors telling them that their food has nothing to do with their colitis. Everything goes through your colon that you eat. And they were put on a strict liquid-only diet, no vegetables, no greens, Gatorade, just loaded with sugar. Gatorade, got an inflamed colon, and we're going to just shuffle 400 or 500 grams of sugar through that thing a day. This is how they're treating this shit. So back to the RA, rheumatoid arthritis. So she asked the doctor the question about natural remedies. Doctor says, yeah, I think food has something to do with it. Doctor says, if you want to go the natural route, try the Whole30 diet, and then we'll see what happens. So she comes in and tells me that. I just so happened to have a Whole30 cookbook in my file drawer. So I pulled out the Whole30 cookbook and we just opened it up. One random page. I think it had like 9 recipes on there, 12 recipes or something like that. But in that one page, we found 16 ingredients that were not autoimmune friendly, particularly for her condition of rheumatoid arthritis. Because RA, she had leaky gut, she had brain fog, she had all the symptoms of leaky gut. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what leaky gut is, that's when the intestinal layer, the intestinal walls, the membrane of the intestinal walls gets hyperpermeable, it gets really thin. Things can get through it. In fact, it might get holes in it. And this is caused in part with a lot of like OTC drugs. Your anti-inflammatory drugs are high in producing leaky gut, which is ironic because they're for anti-inflammation. But particles leak out your intestinal lining and they get into your bloodstream. And because that's not how food is supposed to enter your bloodstream, your body recognizes it as a foreign invader. So that's how we get food intolerances, right? We get leaky gut. Maybe we're taking too many drugs, too much stress, what have you. But we create this situation in our intestinal lining where food can actually get out and get into the bloodstream. And depending on what it is, whatever gets out, that's what you're going to create an intolerance to. And so if you create a leaky gut situation through consuming too many over-the-counter and medical drugs and eating crap food and not hydrating your body, if you create that leaky gut scenario, then that's when you develop these intolerances and allergies to all these different sorts of foods. So if you've ever known anybody that's allergic to everything, that person probably had leaky gut, at least at some time in the past. So we go back to, sorry, did what I do, got off track. But so go back to the Whole30 cookbook. We found 16 not autoimmune friendly ingredients in this Whole30 recipe, one page. So now you can imagine why the rheumatologist doesn't really put a lot of stock into diet, right? Because if the best she can do is give people Whole30 as advice, and Whole30 is just littered with not autoimmune friendly foods, then it wouldn't be a very good approach now, would it? But you got to get specific with the foods that you got to use autoimmune friendly foods that are very low on the inflammatory marker scale, and give your gut a chance to heal. When your gut can heal, the permeability goes away. You get more mucus in there, so things move better. And if things are moving better and gliding better in there, then you're less likely to create more inflammation. If you're not introducing inflammatory foods to your body, right? See how this reverses. We go from adding inflammatory foods to our body that maybe don't digest very well, your nuts, seeds, that type of thing, and they're going through and they're still in whole form as they're going through your intestinal tract. And then you've got maybe your gut lining is low on mucus, and maybe it's extra thin. Maybe there's a few holes in it. So it's already inflamed, and then you push these inflammatory foods through it, and that's how we get where we're at. Okay. So this prospect purchased a little pack from me, and it was basically just an advisory pack. And part of the advisory pack was to obviously work hand in hand with her physician, so nothing we do would be outside the scope of the doctor. But basically, I gave her a meal plan for autoimmune friendly diet. Encouraged her to stay off of the ibuprofen and acetaminophen, so long as her doctor was okay with that, and so long as she could tolerate the pain that was created, that would inevitably get better as she eliminated the inflammatory markers from her diet. And within 4 weeks, all symptoms were gone. Within 4 weeks, all symptoms were gone. And all she did was go from eating like Whole30 type foods to autoimmune friendly Whole30 foods, and trusted that her body's inflammation was going to go down. So she really weaned down the amount of OTC drugs that she was taking until she was down to pretty much none. And that's the discipline it takes to get to where you need to be. So that's a typical like rheumatoid arthritis or autoimmune specialist. Like you go to a gastroenterologist, and the guys, I'm not here to bash, but Oh, I don't know what happened. I hope I didn't lose this whole entire broadcast. Good gracious. All right. Well, I'm going to have to check this later and see if it went. Shit. I love the technology. I love technology. All right. Well, I'm going to review this video and see if the actual live took. I don't know if I've been talking to nothing for 20 minutes or not. But anyway, guys, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, or if you want to find out if you have a likelihood of being autoimmune, reach out to me. I've got some really inexpensive ways to find out, inexpensive ways to come up with a plan for you. It doesn't have to take a whole lot. As long as you can follow a plan and you can follow advice and be honest with yourself, like you shouldn't need like 8 weeks of coaching or whatever. But if you do, I'm here for you. If you ever need anything, all right, reach out to me on DM. If I get enough interest in this, then I will look at starting up a group for this. So I think it'd be real beneficial to have a bunch of people that can support each other. You know, we can all know what everybody's individual risk factors are for being autoimmune, and we can support each other. We can come up with plans and give feedback and give tips and help and support, you know, in a group format. So you don't feel like you're going at it alone, right? Because it would be a lot of change if you want to get yourself out of an autoimmune condition. Like, the steps are simple and the process is simple, but it would involve some change, quite a bit of change. Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, see if there's any comments here. Yeah. Darn it. I think I lost it. All right. Well, I guess that's what happens. So, all right. If you guys ever need anything, I'm here for you. Like I said, if you want to take advantage of a really inexpensive way to find out if you're autoimmune risk and get a plan for you that you can work with your physician, right? Just give me a call, DM me. All right. You can reach out to me anytime, 406-241-3763. My DM is always open for you. And I just appreciate all your love and support, guys. All right. Peace, much love, and live well.